Hello. That is our first trial for our presentation in the Integral Conference in Hungary. And
2016.
2016. We were there already in 2014. It was so great. So this time we applied again. And we will hold a workshop about integral aging, a challenge to take on. My name is Heidi and Mark.
Okay, and I'm Mark Davenport. And we're not, even though this may look like it, we are not brand new to video. We have a series of, gosh, how many we got now?
70, 80, even more videos.
Yes, in a collection that we call
The Wisdom Factory. And you can check out what we are doing. But at the moment, our wisdom is applied on older age. And we would like to ask some questions to the audience.
So that presumes that we are older age, I guess.
I guess you can see that, can't you?
I guess so, anyway. Well, anyway, some of us are older than others. Yes.
The questions are, when you think about older age, independently how old you are now, what do you think about it? Do you fear it? Are you happy about it? What is it for you? What does it mean for you? Just think about it a moment.
And as you look ahead a little bit, how do you see your life, say, at age 80 or 85 or 90? My goodness, we might live to be 100 these days. What's good about that?
Yeah, what's good about that? Because often we see old people and think, oh God, I don't want to get as old as that. All these illnesses and things. Is it really so? And this we will discuss later. But first, what is your thought about it? And if you are already 80 or 70 or older, let's say in the second half of life, how is your experience? Just get it into your mind and make it aware.
And it's also okay to think about what's negative about aging too. What are the downsides here? Yeah.
So our endeavor in the conference is to explore the story which we told ourselves about aging so far, what aging meant and still means in society. At least we can speak for our societies, which we know quite well.
European,
American and European, And how can we rewrite the story? What can be changed by ourselves, by society, by culture, by, we will explore that, to have a better vision and a better experience of the second half of life.
Okay. And I have, of course, my own personal example of my second half of life, and I'd like to briefly tell you a bit about that, just as a way of introduction into our topic. And frankly, it begins about age 50. I find myself, as they say, on the shelf. The place I'd been working for 10 years in a professional capacity suddenly closed. Changes in legal requirements, changes in professional requirements, and our facility, which was a drug and alcohol treatment center for inpatient units, was obsolete. And I was out of a job as a director, and looked around for another position comparable, and of course they were also under the same legal and professional constraints. And so I had to take a job that was not what I would have preferred at all. And I didn't fit in very well. And I began kind of a downhill trend at age 50, where I should have sort of felt at the peak of my professional form, and didn't work out. And so I went down to really unpleasant jobs, things that just kept body together but not soul, and retired as early as I could at age 62. even though there was a 25% penalty on my old age pension at that point. Of course, this cost a marriage too, this business, and but with the proceeds from the real estate that we split, I was able to move to a Florida retirement community, which was quite an experience. You had to be 55 to enter, and I felt finally, though, that I had leisure time. I didn't have to do anything. I soon realized, though, that I had been waiting to retire, to go in pension, and was very good at waiting, but I wasn't very good at being on pension. I got bored after a very few months, fixing up the new place, getting acquainted with the neighborhood, enjoying the pleasures of life near the beach in Florida. And it led to boredom and restlessness and eventually a spiritual existential crisis, which led me to Eckhart Tolle, for example, and Andrew Cohen, and what his great magazine, What is Enlightenment? And then finally to Don Beck, Spiral Dynamics, and Ken Wilber with Integral. And Wilber was really the icing on the cake, and I read Short History of Everything, Brief History of Everything, and my life began to change, and that was wonderful. It's such a contrast to life in that retirement community where there was no spiritual, no intellectual resources. There was
spiritual, probably neither.
Well, I don't know, because I wasn't at that point terribly spiritual either.
Okay.
I was at a par with them, but intellectual resources, no, there weren't. And there were so many death notices in the clubhouse. Every month someone's passing away. People in the hospital, difficulties, troubles. What changed my life, as after reading Wilber, was a chance Facebook connection with Heidi. We were both speaking about integral topics with a common friend, and we became interested in each other as a result of those conversations. And, well, long story short, in a very few months, I found myself winging my way to Italy.
Yeah, and you were what age?
I was at that point
69.
69.
Yeah,
69 or 70.
People said, "Oh, he is mad." In that age, and that's exactly what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
What we call ageism. It's not our invention. There are other people who have coined the term. Ageism is to see people by means of their age and what they should do and what they shouldn't do.
Exactly.
And with 70, go in a different country where you don't understand maybe the people as well as at home. This seems to be...
And, to think of ageism, that ism business, think of racism, think of sexism, where people should be a certain way because of who they are, because of their sex, because of their color. Well, because of our age, are we supposed to be a certain way? Well, not anymore. And that's the good news.
And that's what we want to talk about here.
Indeed. And this has been brewing for a while with me, but not a long time. But it came just maybe 3 or 4 months ago, really, when I stopped to think that, my goodness, here I am, in these retirement years from my 60s to the end, which, if I follow my mother's example, is going to be 100 or so. She made it. So that's a long span of time. That's almost 40 years, and that's as long as I was a productive employee, a work-a-daddy member of society, doing, buying, spending, and with no blueprint, no preordained way I was supposed to be spending my life in these final years. Or you either, actually.
No, for me it was not. It was a bit different.
Mhm.
I'm not yet your age,
Mhm.
and I always was interested. For me, learning is a big thing. For me, the earning money part is not so great,
Mhm.
and I started to do that for myself only with 40, when I separated from my partner and I was left without any money. So I had to get some money, and I discovered that I'm a classical singer from I was before, and I discovered that I'm very good in teaching singing and in teaching voice, which otherwise, if I hadn't had the need to earn money, I would never have discovered. So I worked for 20 years helping people to find their authentic voice for to speak or for to sing, and for liberation, for to discover your body, your mind, your spirit by means of discovering your voice. And then I had other interests. Ken Wilber with me is for 20 years, and I'm always excited to learning new things. So for me, I never could imagine to be in a retirement center. But for me, the idea to be alone here in the countryside and maybe not being able to walk anymore and maybe fall down and nobody sees and nobody helps, that is an underlying fear I'm having since I realized 60. So I am quite inside of this ageism topic, and I discovered it only since we are working about this topic, how much my idea about aging is it's determined by what society says what aging is.
Yeah, society tells us, how we're supposed to be, in our old age, in our elderhood.
So I think this is the point where we should talk about what societies said in the past, and go a little bit more deep into the combination of this topic with what we have learned in integral theory and spiral dynamics.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know about, if we're interested in Wilber, if we're interested in spiral dynamics, we all know about the levels of consciousness development. Both personal and cultural, and going back, to early history and to some places even today, some circumstances even today. We have, the beige level, which didn't have just survival. We didn't really have much old age in those days. People didn't generally get past their sort of young adult prime. So as soon as there was decline, they were on their own, and if they got to 35 or 40, that was about as much as you could possibly expect, really.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any question about old age.
30 was considered an old.
Yeah, 30.
Actually, I had experience with an Albanian guy, and he was 33, and he really thought he was old.
He was old.
He was, in his society, this is old.
Well, in the 60s, I was told not to trust anybody over 30, which gave me a little pang as I approached 30, believing that stuff.
Then there comes the next level.
Yeah, and then we come up to the tribal stage of purple, and here there's more security. People can live longer, and so elders.
Why is there more security? Because we should say that. Well, because there are people living not alone or in little hubs, but in a tribe.
In a tribe.
So there's a belonging, to a group of people.
Exactly.
And this group of people determines your identity. You don't have an identity for yourself. You are part of this group, and this defines you. You have a role, well-defined role, but you cannot just say, I don't like it anymore, I do something else.
No.
This is the next stage of development.
But one of those roles, if you get that to that point in life, is an elder.
Yes.
And then you are respected because you are the one who tells the stories, who tells how the tribe began. The oral history is there. And you know where everything in the forest is that needs to be found for survival, for illness, etc. And you have experienced, crises in your life with the community, and you know how to handle them, and people take your advice gladly, happily. They're teachers, right?
The wise elders.
Yeah.
And as that was still times, or maybe in some parts of the world there are still, where it's not so easy. No?
Yeah.
So there is no healthcare as we know it today.
No.
So there are very few people who reach old age or older age and who take on the role of the wise people. So it is relatively easy, no, to be recognized by the younger ones, because there is one or two people, and let's say on the pyramid and down there, there are a lot of children, a lot of young people. So, you know, it's not like today where we are almost more elder.
Yeah, it's not like this. It was definitely a pyramid.
Yeah.
But that phase of life, the tribal phase, has been surpassed in much of the world, and we've gone into the red stage, the egotistic stage, where somebody said, "To hell with this! I'm not listening to that old fart,"
I am the king. I say what you have to do. And so there were the people who said what was done, then there were the other people who obeyed what was done and clandestinely tried to become the boss.
Right.
And as this is not an easy job, killing the king was quite a normal way of getting up to the top. So the chance to getting very old was not great even.
Not so great. And this, of course, applies to both the men and the women. We're talking about how the king, etc. But the fact is that even today in many parts of the world, you'll find a tyrannical mother-in-law who is the boss of the women in the family. And the younger women just can't wait until she dies so they can promote their son to a position of importance. And so this period can last for millennia.
But maybe today we won't so easily kill the one who is in the way, because even in other societies there are some laws going around. So we are a little bit more evolved altogether in the world, where killing another person is not as normal and easy anymore as it was. Also, it still happens.
It still happens.
Yeah.
But we come into, a place where there's actually laws and rules about this sort of thing.
And this is the next stage where the rules are there and are reinforced.
Yes, and elders have a renewed role in this. They are the ones who ensure order and control, who provide, who are role models for other people growing up in those societies.
You're saying elders, yes, but it's mainly male elders.
Yeah,
this is patriarchy.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yes.
Yeah. Women get their status from what man they're associated with. Yeah.
Mrs. Mark Davenport.
Oh, I know it. I back in high school, girls would practice writing their names as Mrs. Miss, and they would put their boyfriend's name after that. Mrs. Mark Davenport. My mother signed her name that way.
This is so strange.
Yeah.
Anyway, for us now, because we are in another point, in this stage, there were more elders because they took care for each other.
That's right. There was a good thing about blue. They did take care of one another.
Blue is the color in spiral dynamics, and it means the traditional stage of development.
And we probably know many people at this stage. Yeah.
Okay, and now comes the next stage, which has created how we are seeing elder life today. And this is the orange stage, what we call in spiral dynamics orange. And that means the modern stage, which is driven by rationality, by what is possible to do, and it is expected that you do the possible and that you raise for, getting wealthy and being successful. Wherever you look today, they are talking about success, become more successful in 30 days or whatever.
They even talk about successful aging.
And even successful aging. This is a concept of modern age, modern times.
And we talk about achieving, reaching your full potential. And of course that means some people win and some people lose because it's very competitive, And when we get to older age, we're not out there producing and making and earning, and we're not even very good at consuming anymore because we have all this stuff.
I want to say, you say achieving your full potential, but this is only, in this stage, only directed to what you can do, to what you can do in your business and things. It's not yet like it's in green or in higher states, that this sort of potential which is innate in you as a human being.
Those things aren't measurable, so they don't count.
They don't count in this stage of development. But we are in the Western world still mainly in this stage of development where money is so important, and if you don't have money, as many elder people don't have, many have, many don't, then too bad for you. You don't get the right care.
It's too bad for you. And what does the orange stage do with older people?
They hope that they will die soon, and they, this is a little bit hazardous, but in America they have Medicare, and they fill people up with medicines. And I was thinking maybe this is a hope of the state to make them die earlier, because the side effects of these medicines, they are hugely dangerous.
Oh, you think governments are smart enough to think that?
I don't know, but it can be behind, because in this stage of development of a society, elders are burdened because they don't produce and they might not have enough money to buy, so useless.
But we have Orange is great at building institutions, though. And that means institutions for old people, too.
Institutions where they are parked.
They're parked, yes.
The body will be cared for, you get enough food, and maybe you get washed sometimes. But that's it in Orange in modern times.
And I did that for a couple of years in my way down in my 50s and early 60s. And just taking care of people physically,
The psychological needs and spiritual needs are not really, and the mental needs. I mean, we need some food for the head too, don't we?
Oh, yes, we do.
Anyway, now we go into the next stage, which is already quite online in Western societies, not really necessarily in...
More so in parts of Europe than in America even.
Also. And this is what we call green, where we begin to care for the whole world, not only for ourselves, the family, the tribe, the society, or our achievements, but we begin to take care for, we begin to consider what CO2 emission does to the world, the cutting down of the rainforest, what it does to the world, how we are suiciding ourselves by doing what is possible. Yeah, it is possible, but we are beginning to think about the consequences.
Yes, we see all the, I was going to say extravagances, but I mean all the downsides of oranges grow. And so we want to reverse those things. And we also want to bring in all these marginalized groups. I say we because this is kind of... close to where we are these days. And so the elderly are sort of like taking care of all ethnicities, etc. Not discriminating in that way, and not discriminating by sex, or not by sexual orientation, for example. And so elderly are to be taken care of, to be loved, included. Exactly.
So in some way they get back as status what they had in the second stage of development, that they get considered. What they don't get yet is respected and how do you say, considered a guidance.
No, not the elderly are not guides.
No, they are just
They are like
just there and like a kid, like a
children.
dog, like whatever, a part of life, and for that they have a right to exist, and we take care for that they can exist in a sort of decent way.
Sort of decent, but rather condescending way.
Yeah, and what happens here
knows best.
Yeah, what happens here is that older people often are how do you call that? De-responsibilized. Oh dear, whatever.
The responsibility is taken away from them.
Yes, that they are too much cared for, that they are not allowed to try out if they can do things by themselves still or not. You know, they just are considered, oh, I help it, I do it for you. And then the green person feels, I'm so good, I'm so, generous. And so there is a little bit of...
We drive the old ladies to the supermarket once a week. Isn't that nice of us?
Yes. There is a little bit of egocentrism still there. So, but it's good. Altogether, it's good.
It's better.
It's much better than kicking old people out and saying, better you die. Okay.
Yes, but we need to come back to this and look at it from an integral point of view.
Yeah, now we go over.
But really go first. Take a look about the quadrants. We've talked about the levels, and as we're all Wilburites, so to speak, we should take a look at the quadrants.
Oh, I thought we'd do that together with talking about integral. In the integral state.
If you want to go that way, we can do it too.
I thought it would be nice because first we say these were the first tier stages of development, and then there comes the second tier, the big leap into a different, altogether different way of being, different way of viewing the world and of thinking, of acting, of interpreting, or whatever. So, and I thought we can, as we are looking for what in an integral level aging could mean, that we could go through the quadrants here to our needs and desires and what the institutions need to be or could be and could contribute, and what the facts are, and what communities can be there, and so on. So this would be all the four quadrants.
Well, we're doing this all at once then, so to speak.
No, we can begin with one. Maybe the upper left. I'm good in upper left. Upper left means the individual, internal part of our existence. Individual, me, or you, and internal, what is happening in the inside of us.
Sure. So how do each of us feel about aging? How do I feel about aging?
For instance,
yeah. It's not what I thought it was going to be. It's quite different. I'm not old and decrepit. I'm quite capable. I have some limitations, some medical concerns, but I'm perfectly capable of being independent, productive, think, do all the stuff.
So why should you be cast out of
exactly
of life?
Yeah. What a waste it would be to just sit me on the shelf and take me to the movies on the weekend or something.
Yeah, and just do nothing with the experience we have gathered into the older age.
But you know what? I often think of myself as an older person. I've bought these stories that I have heard.
Effectively, we go to the right upper quadrant. Effectively, we have done these years which we have done. So we are older than many other people.
We are.
But older in itself doesn't mean anything.
No.
But we have given it certain meanings. And we are now about to understand what our interpretations of certain words are,
well, just an example of the upper right from a couple 3 weeks ago. I was getting an examination, and at my age, you got to check the prostate, and I was told that for my age it was fine. What I wanted to know, was it okay or wasn't it okay? I wasn't concerned about how it was for my age. But I didn't pursue it at the time because it seemed like a natural response to get from the doctor, you know?
Yeah, we are classifying this.
Yeah.
We are always measuring how it should be, and nobody really knows how it should be. It depends really on your worldview, what you think things should be.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So this is an orange worldview.
Yeah.
That old age. You should, with 70, your postdoc shouldn't be good anymore.
No, it gets better.
You should be ill and need a lot of medicines to make a good living to Bayer and Sherrington and all these medicines.
All the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah,
exactly.
They want to exist.
You bet. Okay.
Want to be successful on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's okay to monitor body functions and have analyses, and watch your diet. Maybe you don't need to be eating the way you were earlier on when you were in another stage of your life.
This is always the upper right quadrant when we talk about how to take care for the body, how nutrition is. For instance, really, I think many people should stop smoking or drinking, and so. We have heard lately that somebody who has smoked for 80 years, she became 105. This is an exception. I also know from a friend I knew who was a doctor for the lungs. He said only 2% of lung cancer is of people who have not smoked. So 98% of lung cancer people have smoked. Doesn't mean that necessarily you get lung cancer, but the probability is quite high. Or maybe it's not lung cancer. Like my uncle, he had the veins in his leg had to be substituted, and he died of, he stopped smoking about half a year before he died. That was definitely a little bit too late.
Yeah.
So these things are considerations of the upper right quadrant. I want to go back to the upper left, to the interiors.
Okay.
Because in my idea, when we got older and don't have to think anymore about being responsible for other creatures, like, we have our kitties that we have to feed, but not children who need to go to school, university, and need their new cell phone or whatever. So you are not constricted anymore to earn a lot of money, except the money you need for your own survival, and you have the power to regulate what you need and what you buy for yourself, or what you renounce on. So you can organize it much better with how much money you can live. So you don't need to give a lot of energy in earning a lot of money. So energy is set free. And you could go with more ease into internal aspects of life. It is not by chance that spirituality is awakening often with people over 40. I actually began with over 50, I wanted to say. I began with 40, 42, 43.
Oh, you were
the first
precocious.
No, some friends told me, and I said, really? Might it be? And now I consider myself really being very much interested in spirituality and doing a path of spiritual growth. And we have, first of all, probably more time, and second of all, more experience. We have done so many things which often didn't go well, and we have, we have tried again in another way, and we have found out what matters more and what matters less. I don't want to say that we do know it now. No. We are still on the path, but in some way things have sorted out themselves. So we have the possibility to have a bigger overview of what can happen in life. We have survived so many challenges. We are not so anxious anymore and not so completely out of what can happen, because we have seen, we are still alive.
So many marriages, so many jobs, so many interests that we follow
And
for a while.
catastrophes.
Catastrophes, deaths
Yeah,
of people near and dear.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And we are still alive and we are fine. So let's say the fear which we often have in younger years of not succeeding, of not, doing things wrong, which is right in younger years because you don't know it yet. This fear gets less and less and less when you grow up. And this is really a good thing. Really a good thing.
It's a release.
You don't have to lose anything anymore. You get much more free from the judgment of other people. You are get more centered in yourself because you have more affirmation of yourself by yourself, maybe also from other people, and it might be important, but you know yourself better when with more years of experience. No?
Yes. I'm going to the upper right now. I always live close to the bathroom because of times like this.
Okay, you go to the bathroom and I continue here with Kitty. We are in a wee space with animals in the countryside of Italy. And this is a blind kitty who was a stray kitty. Come show yourself to the people. And she was around our place eating on the food place for about 2 years. And the other cats and the dog were chasing her away. And at a certain moment we realized, oh, she's banging against the wall and she was falling down the staircase. And so we realized that she's blind. And so since then, we defended her against the other crowd because animals have a very good sense of who is belonging to the wee space and who is not. And she was definitely not belonging. So the first weeks we had to defend her against the others who wanted to chase her away. And she's now living inside the house mainly. And we try to care for her, but allow her to do what she can do. So she can go out. And she has learned to scratch on the door to come in. In some way, a kitty like this is an example for what we need to do with in older age, how we need to treat people who are older. Allow them to explore what they can do. But take care for these moments when they are in danger. For instance, when she has a sort of a sense that when she comes near an abyss that she stops. But sometimes it might happen. And that's we should do with older people to prevent the worst danger for them, but allow them to do what they can do. Even if it is for us, watching them to do it is sort of, okay, hopefully nothing happens. It is, how do you say, it's stressful to watch older people to do things at their pace and in their way to do. It's stressful for the caregiver. And attention, do we do it for us or do we do it for them? And this is, I think, a consideration which belongs to second tier, to what we call integral consciousness. Okay, maybe when you left.
We were still in the upper left, but maybe it's time to go down to the lower.
I was saying here about the animals who know very well the we space, who is belonging and who is not. And actually, we humans do too. We have a feeling if we belong to a group or not. So in older age, there is the phenomenon that people feel often very lonely. So what can we do to create a we space?
Well, one thing we can do is talk to our peers, create a society of our peers, rather than a society that has been given to us according to what green and orange thinks is okay for us, that we create a we space for ourselves, where we can have good relationships.
So you mean all old people together in a city?
No, we tried that in Florida in our retirement community. That was
not what
so
you mean.
good.
So
No.
what do you mean?
Well, we need other people who are in similar circumstances to ourselves. Okay. And that doesn't have to be by age necessarily. But of course, we don't want to forget family, and we don't want to be excluded from the company of younger people. That's not it. Or from working age people. There's all of this going on. But what is missing, and what Integral, would like to supply, I think, is a peer group of people like us who can encourage, who can mentor, teach each other, who can and actually engage in political action when necessary.
Okay, so you come to the lower right,
That's
political
right.
action, work on institutions,
Sure.
create institutions. I don't know if we have the power to. I don't think so, but if we find some rich person to create something which is a truly integral center for older age.
Well, we don't know what shape it would take. But the thing is, we can author, how this goes ourselves. We don't have to take what's given to us by other chunks of society.
We can, but do we?
Do we? Well, this is what we need to explore.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. We don't know our ability. But one nice thing to remember is old people vote. They really do. Much more than younger people. So not that we need to, insist on everything going our way. I don't like that idea either, because there are some old people's groups which are just complaining about this, complaining about that, wanting more and more and more. And I don't really want to do this at the expense of other people.
So what you are saying is stepping up and creating something.
Yes.
In your own initiative, instead of waiting that the institutions are doing it for you, and that if they don't, then you complain, and that's all what you do to create a community.
Well,
So
that's
what happens now.
Part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how would be a vision for that?
Oh gosh. Well, then I think probably we have to start with our own ideas of what we would like to see for ourselves.
So first, explore our own ideas, put them in the right perspective.
Yeah, and
come out of victimization.
Exactly. The coming out of victimization is a big chunk of where we start from. So we don't have to buy the old stories of what it's like to be old.
So when we go here around and in Italy and we ask somebody who's, they begin with 30 or 40, I'm carrying on. How are you? I'm carrying on. Tiriamo avanti. Tiriamo avanti.
I'm pulling ahead, pulling onward, yes, pulling.
So this is such a victimized way of seeing the world. So we need in ourselves first to explore how far we are in this mindset of, I'm putting up with it, and I cannot do anything. And then discern where we can do something, and effectively there are some things where we cannot do it, at least not much, but where the only thing we might need to do is complaining, send feedback, we can say today.
As a young kid, I worked in a grocery store, and there was an old woman who worked there. I don't know how old she was. For a kid, you could have been old at 50,
Yeah, sure.
But I'm sure she was older than that. And I'd ask her, how was she today? And she said, I'm able to be about.
I'm able to be about is different.
Yeah.
It's more positive.
It was, but she still saw herself in terms of, I'm lucky I can still walk around. That was the feeling I got.
Yeah, but this is appreciation of what is possible. This is great.
Okay.
I think if we went more into that, that's what we have, instead of looking at what we don't have, this would already be a good starting point.
Are you saying that I was looking at this from a victimized position a little bit myself?
You implied in it, you interpreted it as a victimized position, by the wording itself was sort of,
this kind of reframing of the past happens all the time. I get reminded of these things continually.
You see, this was now in real time.
Yeah.
We are not aware of how often we talk in this way or think in this way, interpret other people's talk in this way. It's really amazing. We are so programmed in our habits. So this would be really the first step to create a better life for ourselves and for others, to discover the lenses through which we see reality.
Yeah. So here we are, It's us, it's now.
Yeah.
And we've looked at the quadrants, we've looked at the levels.
We didn't look a lot on the lower right quadrant and the institutions. And I think, as I said, some of the things you cannot directly influence, but we can. Today there are a lot of petitions. When we engage in petitions for real good things, we can change them in a certain way. So we have not the direct power to go there and say, change it for me. No. But when we have understood that something just doesn't go right and we want it, we have different needs, we need to step up and make it present. And we need to engage. When you start a petition, you have to take care for it. It's not that you put it out and then it goes by itself. Whatever you begin, you have to follow up with it. So many people say, oh, why should I do it? Somebody else can do it. And that's exactly why institutions don't change quickly, because they have not enough pressure. And politics and big institutions, they are slow in changing, and when they don't feel the pressure behind, they don't change.
They don't change.
They just they think people are fine with it. When we don't give feedback, how can they know? So we have to step up.
Yeah, and we can't really imagine what they'd be like necessarily. Think for a moment, what would the pharmaceutical industry be like if they were run from an integral point of view? What would they do?
They would earn much less money.
Yeah,
and they would not see the illness of people as a desirable state.
Yeah,
because they are living on our feeling bad.
Yeah, they would not have to discover new melodies.
They might change. They might change their object, going away from pure chemical research and chemical drugs to implement other things.
I come to understand their business was the health of people.
Yeah, and not the selling of drugs.
And not the sale of drugs.
Yeah.
For example.
And actually, this can happen by only, I don't want to say one person at the head of such an enterprise, but very few people who decide, because of their consciousness, to run businesses differently. And this will have a snowball effect. But it has to be done by somebody. And if not us, who then?
Yeah.
We in our area, the pharmaceutical bosses in their area, or whoever runs a business, they need to do it in their area. Everybody needs to step up in the area of influence they have and present what is not working well, not from a needy and complaining and point of view, but from a
strong and healthy,
felt view, but also very much with objectivity, because otherwise there is no chance of presenting, of changing something when you come from your complaint being, oh, couldn't you do that? You should have done that. Look what you have done of me. Nobody will listen to you when you are in this way.
No.
So.
Well, I think we should stop, before we start.
Yeah, we would like in this phase of the conference, and it would be much earlier, we would have other people to jump in and say what they say. Here we are sort of one way. We cannot see what other people say, but in case you see it, leave your comments and connect with us, the Wisdom Factory, and join our community. And
what is our community?
The Wisdom Factory community on Google Plus, and then we have on Facebook Masterminding Integral Aging, and you can join us there. Yeah, and Heidi Hörnlein or Adelheid Hörnlein, that's me. Mark Davenport, it's him. You can Google us. We are here in Paradiso Integrale in Umbria, in Italy, and you can join us. You can come here and have holidays in our place.
Have an integrally aging vacation.
Wonderful. Or help us to create a community to live together in older age. Who knows what is all possible to do? We are starting out with this topic just now. So far, we were working on integral, no, not integral, and intimate relationships in older ages. And we will present launch a course, an online course on that in June, I guess. And if you're interested, contact us. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.